Sizing and estimating can be very confusing concepts to new Agile teams. So let's look at those with regard to how they complement one another and are similar versus how they're different. So first of all, what do they have in common? Both of these activities, sizing and estimating, are ways of gathering team insights into what we feel about or what we notice about items going into the product backlog. These insights then inform the product owner, the owner of the product backlog, about something with regard to how we might move the priority of the item up and down in the backlog. And finally, both of them set information for continuous improvement on how we plan and project what we might be able to get done in the future. So sizing has this about it that's different than estimating. Sizing is a relative number. It's a relativeness of one item versus another item versus all items in the product backlog. Let's think about it this way. Think about the Empire State Building. How tall is it? Well, how tall is your office building? Without knowing exact numbers, my suspicion is you can figure out relatively which one is taller than the other. This is relative sizing. As it turns out, the Empire State Building is 1,250 feet. I suspect I didn't need to know that to figure out whether it was bigger or smaller than your office building. So sizing takes into account relativeness of complexity, effort, and doubt of items in the product backlog so that we have an initial good enough coarse granularity view of what the item entails. There are some ways that we do sizing, in particular one known as planning poker. So with planning poker, we take some relative notions, usually in Fibonacci series of numbers, where the smaller numbers are closer together, and as we get into larger numbers, it's immaterial whether an item is relatively a 20 versus a 40 versus a 100. In planning poker, every member of the team hears and has conversation around the item, and on account of whatever, they all lay their cards down at the same time. At this point, they look at the smallest assumed relative size versus the largest assumed relative size. And conversation now occurs around that until the team comes to a good enough relative sizing. An example of sizing, again, might be something we call dog points. Is a Labrador Retriever bigger or smaller than a Chihuahua? Is the Chihuahua bigger or smaller than a Poodle? And teams have discussions around this and simply give relative sizes without knowing exact sizes of the dogs. And one of the conversations that can come out is, well, wait a minute, what kind of poodle are we talking about? Or what ages are we talking about with the dogs? That's sizing. And it's done prior to iteration planning, so that it informs the team and the product owner prior to going into the planning what could potentially fit into the time box. Now when it's time to figure out exactly what goes in the time box, we move to the estimating exercise. Estimating is task level view of what we can get done work-wise. So now we are at the task level. How many ideal effort hours will it take to complete this task and then this task and then this task in order to get acceptance and doneness of this item from the product backlog? We track this daily, and it's always in terms of either hours or ideal days. How much do we have left to do? In sum, sizing informs relatively at a coarse granularity what we think we can get done over time in subsequent iterations. And that is called velocity. Whereas estimating informs what we think could change how we do our sizing based on the actual hours of task effort we commit to. Sizing versus estimating. I hope this helps.